in the cellars of the opera house during a dress rehearsal. And his brother Joseph. Oh. I tell thee, there's something funny going on here. I've seen things I can't explain. You're daft, you are. Florine Papillon, a property man. I don't think that means he owns property. I think he was in charge of the sort of stage props. Yeah. Just for anyone who wasn't aware. And here they all come, the chorus, all ready for their wonderful, wonderful stage debut. Don't think that's Swan Lake somehow. They had a very big backstage for this, didn't they? Must have been huge. The Phantom, it is the Phantom of the Opera. You silly girls, there's no such person or thing or entity. Carlotta. Madame Mimette will sing the role of Marguerite. If any jealous attempts the Phantom, in other words, you try and take her place, bitch, and I've got you. I'll whoop your ass good. Nobody shall upstage me, I tell you, nobody. Go on, sod off, little man. I tell you, I'm the prima donna. It's in my contract. I'll sue your asses off. We saw him for an instant, a grey shadow, and then he was gone. See how this is really well done, because they build up the tension. The audience is wondering, what is this Phantom? Yes, and this is where it's great too, because we've got these group of women who are saying he had no nose. Yes, he did. It was enormous. And so it's totally confusing the audience as to what this Phantom is or could be, or if it's just a figment of their imagination. So it's really well done, like that, Dark Realmers. It's a great study in building drama and sort of heightening the tension, especially with that dark backdrop. That man came out of the cellars just after we saw the Phantom. Could it be that he... See? Red herrings. So the paranoia is rising. No, come on. Oi, the Phantom, you see. I've seen the Phantom. Oi, horrible he is. His eyes are ghastly pits in which there is no light. The hole's a grinning skull. Now, straight away, that's got the audience. Imagine the audience sitting there in the theatre and they're visualising this in their mind. His face is like a leprous parchment, yellow skin stretched over drum-tight protruding bones. His nose? There is no nose. Then how does he smell? Bloody awful. Yuck, 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 yuck. Now, the audience has been set up with this image that they're expecting. Yeah, like, don't talk about him because, you know, shit happens when you start talking about things. Oh, the third cellar. That is bloody huge. That is a massive place then. It's got 3 cellars. Meanwhile, at the ranch, she knows there's a presence there. Come in when I'm calling you. From the hidden spaces beyond the walls, a melodious voice, like, oh, I was right, see? The voice of an angel spoke to her. Da-dun! On Wednesday night, my child, Madame Carlotta will not sing Marguerite in Faust. You will take her place. Could it really be? Really? I have spoken. To you I have imparted the full measure of my art. You will triumph. All Paris will worship you. Bloody sure of himself, isn't he, Dark Realmers? But I warn you, you must forget all worldly things and think only of your art and your master. See, it's a little bit, I always found Phantom of the Opera a little bit tragic because here's this man and he loves her in a way he loves her art, you know, because you know he's you know an artist himself, but you know he knows that no one could ever love him with his face, you know, with his horrible visage, and so it is quite a tragic love story in its own way. And that's probably why it's survived the test of time too, Dark Realmers, because it's not only got that horror element, but it's got that sad, unrequited love, that romance that you know we can all relate to. You know, the sadness of loneliness and all that sort of thing. Tell you what, the performances, even before they're on stage, of that chorus is a little bit OTT, Dark Realmers. Well, the stage props are working well. This is this is good storytelling, Dark Realmers, because we have this dark sort of the phantom, you know, in the shadow, and then we get some comic relief. So it's a classic storytelling technique where you do it like a roller coaster. You bring up the tension, then you drop it down, and you bring it up again, and that's all to build up to the final scenes and the final storytelling. May I help you? Oh, darling. Wonder if this was considered a bit racy back then too, Dark Realmers, you know. Because, you know, morals change as society grows and adapts, and, you know, I wonder if sort of smooching like that in sort of public, Raoul, you must forget me, my master has spoken, I must devote my life to my art. I wave my private parts at your auntie, your master, the so-called Phantom of the Opera. Who is this mysterious? Oh, g'day, Paul. Good morning. How are you? Nice to have you with us. We're just up to the part where Christine has told Rial, him, that she can never be his because the Phantom have said no. She must continue her art. You know how I have prayed for the gift of song. I was just saying at the beginning of this stream, Paul, a lot of the versions do have a soundtrack, and this one confused me a little bit because I was adjusting all the settings and there was no you know, sort of added soundtrack to it. But I picked this one because it's a very crisp, clear copy, and the other ones with the soundtracks, which I just assumed this one had, they were a little bit, you know, the condition wasn't the best, and some of the scenes were tinted and everything like this. But this has been restored really, really well. And so I thought, okay, now if it was me and I wanted to watch a movie with, you know, with someone, I'd prefer the better copy, you know. Strangely ill on Wednesday. Oh, okay, Madame Carlotta, who has, you know, the prima donna, has been told don't sing the part or you'll get your ass kicked, and yeah. So here they all are, waiting to see Christine. Waiting for her big entrance. Has thrown you over for a phantom rival. Oh, don't say that to a man in love. I'll just check for you, Paul. I'll just check on the print. I can't seem to see it on the, it's not telling me on the print. I think this is maybe 1905, 1906. I'm not sure, Paul. I'll have to check. It's strange because all the movies in my files always usually have the, you know, year on them. But having said that, we may see that at the end of the credits too, so hang around. But this is a wonderfully restored copy, I have to say, and I was just saying to the Dark Realmers, you know, yes, I agree with you, Paul, amazing restoration. you know, would have taken so much time and effort. Because, as I said, the previous versions that I've shown, not the full movie, but just clips on the Dark Realm Diaries, have been sort of colorized with the soundtrack, and they were quite dark, and it was very hard to see. And I was just saying, seems a bit strange. All the movies I've screened so far have had a background soundtrack, and it's just silent, as in pure silent. And it seems a little bit strange to be just sitting. It's like sitting in an empty room talking to myself without anything going on. Um, but I thought this was, a great copy to screen for everyone. Definitely. And what I found too, from movie websites and so forth, a lot of the old movies that we're now lucky enough to have been restored from different copies, and just clips and pieces that weren't complete. So the people that have the love and the dedication to do that so that the rest of the world can enjoy these movies, I just think it's wonderful. It's just part of our visual history. Bravo, bravo. Thank you all. Wait, don't go. Get your hands off me. I must see her, I tell you I must. Oh, she's fainted. God, if she does that every performance, jeez. Yes, this is, this is so crystal clear, this print. It is, they've cleaned up the scratches, they've, jumps and everything. Yeah, I can imagine the piano player in the background too, Paul. With that dark, dramatic music, and then something lovey-dovey when Raoul and Christine meet and embrace. Yeah, it's just amazing when you think. And a lot of the soundtracks that people have added or put together with this really complement the movies really well. Of course, they're not piano; they're full music suites, and they're just brilliant. But I think this print, being totally silent, I think what the makers went for was to give you that experience of what it must have been like in the theatre when this was a brand new print, with no flaws and no defects, and the piano player. And I'm sitting here now and I can imagine the gasps from the audience and the ah and the sighs and everything. Monsieur, who are you? Oh, don't be silly, Christine, it is I, Raoul. I'm afraid I don't know you, sir. She is suffering a malady. I think she has lost her memory. Excusez-moi. Will you shut off while I examine the patient? Yes, go. I must examine her at once. Now tell me, my dear, what is the last thing you remember? There he is, handsome, upright, etc. I have to say too that the costumes and in this are just wonderful, just superb. Yeah, exactly, Paul. They did spend a lot on wardrobe. I mean, look at that military, outfit. That's just wonderful. And that actor is just, you can just see him. Yeah, he so totally believable as her, intended. Then he heard a voice, a man voice, sonorous and triumphant. Tonight I place the world at your feet. Okay. Oh, sad, isn't it? So, he's found out. Okay, some cad has, wants her. And I must say too, Paul, I think they did quite well with the set. I mean, the set is quite impressive. It's not, doesn't look rickety or sort of stagey at all. It's really good. Yeah, looking everywhere for that voice. Where could that voice have come from? Yes, I agree totally, Paul. I was just saying at the beginning of the movie. Now, as you know, this is the version that stars Lon Chaney, and he was known as the Man of a Thousand Faces. And he insisted always on doing his own makeup, and he actually created the makeup for this, and even the producers weren't allowed to see it. He kept it totally secret so that nobody knew what he would actually look like, and they had such faith in him as an actor that they didn't mind that at all. And why Lon Chaney was such a good actor was because both of his parents were deaf, so he learned at a very early age to communicate a lot, visually. So that made him perfect for the silent era, perfect actor. And together with his makeup skills, that's why he's one of the most highly regarded actors of his time. Oh dear, the Phantom's first victim. The Strangler's Cord. Yes, I actually, Paul, I did a video on, sort of the history of movies, and I did some research on Lon Chaney, and that was one of the interesting things I found out, that both of his parents were deaf, and they did actually, I think, from memory, they ran a school for the deaf too. And so, of course, he had to learn to communicate at an early age. And even though he could speak and had perfect hearing himself. So yes, it was a really fascinating fact. But so you can see how something like that would stand him in good stead in the movies, because of course back then they had no idea. They must have thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have sound? But of course they had no idea that it would come around. So I was saying to the Dark Realmers that one of the things we laugh about now is when we see the performances and see how the gestures are so theatrical and so over the top, but they had to be to communicate what they were trying to get across back then. And Lon Chaney did that very well with his face. You know, even under tons of makeup, he was just so good. And his performance never seemed over the top as compared to other actors. And that's, you know, Madame Carlotte, look, doesn't she look like, oh, I am the diva. Okay, is this a note from the Phantom? Dear managers, the whole Margaret shall be again tomorrow evening. Yes, that's one thing I always find I have trouble with, that when they, you know, do a handwritten note, unless it's really good writing, I can't read. And if the print quality is bad, you've got no hope. Yes, that's very true, Paul. The because a lot of the actors who came into the silent movie era were theatre people, and mostly a lot of them were from Europe too, of course. So the method of acting for stage and film is quite different. And as you know, movies aren't shot in sequence, you know. So it's very, unlike stage, it's very hard for the actors to sort of get their mindset about, you know, oh, I'm doing this scene and I'm angry, but why am I angry? Because I haven't shot the scene that explains it yet or whatever. And one of the interesting facts about the end of the silent era was that, you know, the movie producers and that thought, oh, we'll just use all our, you know, silent movie stars, but many of them just didn't have the voice for sound movies, and that's why a lot of them faded into obscurity. I think one of the few who did, from what I can remember, Douglas Fairbanks. He made it into the sound era, and I think Mary Pickford may have done too, because they were married too, and they had a property called Pickfair. Yes, sound was a fad and it wouldn't last. Yes, that's very true. I think that was sort of like, shows you how Hollywood sort of protects its own even back then. I think the directors and the movie makers who'd been used to silent, they were trying to protect their property. They didn't want to work in sound, and I think it was a bit too daunting for them, and so forth. And what what it was, it must have created a lot of headaches, you know. But the movie going public would have flocked to see movies. To hear people talking would have just been amazing back then. And so, you know, they would have run a negative campaign to say, oh, it's just a fad, you know, don't get used to it and everything like that. So, yeah. But I must do some research. I will do. Actually, that's a quite interesting topic. I'll do some research to find out how that transition period, because that's something that's sort of like a bit of a grey area that nobody sort of, well, nobody I know has done much about or talked about much about. You know, that era that was that transition from silent to sound, because there must have been. I mean, it just didn't go bang and that happened. I think there must have been, you know, a period where silent films were being made and still, and maybe trying to compete with a growing market of sound films. Because also you've got to take into account the economics of it all too. Sound must have been a hell of a lot more expensive. I wouldn't explain. I couldn't explain, but you must never attempt to see me again, Christine. Kiss, kiss. I'll say one thing for old Raoul, he's determined, you know, he's found his bird and nothing's going to stop him. Someone pissing around with the lighting. See, this is what I was saying, Dark Realm, is about how the movie, you know, cleverly builds up this tension about what this phantom looks like. You know, we're just getting that shadow. Oh, sorry about that, Paul. I don't know if that was my stream or maybe your end. But there might have been a bit of a dropout. Oh, okay then. Well, I was just rambling on. You didn't you didn't miss much, Paul. Oh, now that would have been whoa. I think this must be part of the a part of the print that they've gotten that they couldn't restore very well, because we can see the sort of lines and everything. So I think this must have been part of the missing print that they've found and they've added. But it's still been restored really well. Yeah, so you compare that scene to the scene before. Old Raoul's on the case. Okay, time to pay the piper, Christine. And now we're coming up to one of the most famous scenes in silent movie history, Dark Realmers. I'm ready, Master. I'm waiting. Yes, that's very true. Paul's just said, Dark Realmers, you know, you can see how they've had to use the same set, the same camera angle, and everything. Yeah, because, of course, you know, multi-camera angles and so forth, very hard to achieve and very time-consuming back then too. And, of course, you've got to remember too that with the sets, the space was limited. The you know, sets weren't or the sound stages weren't as big as what they are today. Now, I always assumed that Christine assumed that this master was some sort of wonderful, handsome you know, stranger that she, you know, it was, you know, like every woman's dream. But even the mask is frightening her, so, you know, you can. So yeah, she's a little bit like, yeah, you're not what I was expecting, mate. A bit like today when folks, when you go on Tinder and the picture doesn't match the reality. Think rather of my devotion, which has brought you the gift of song. See, the themes that society has, Darkroom, was even present back then. Like, you know, we judge people by looks. We do. That's just what we do. Even, you know, 100 years ago or 200 years ago, it was the same. You know. Yeah, yeah. Give it a go, Paul. See if you can pull with that line. Yeah. Try wearing a mask too, and see if that bit of mystery adds something to it. Oh God, she's fainted again. Weren't you know, like, one thing? I mean, feminists probably today are up in arms. You know, probably saying, "Oh, women shouldn't be portrayed like that." But you've got to remember too. I mean, you know, it was a different time, and you know, women were meant to be suffering from the vapors and all that sort of thing. Um, and also too, it was just a very convenient plot line, you know, to have a woman faint. Here we go, down to the Phantom of the Lair. Oh, the Lair of the Phantom, I meant. A deep lake formed of seepage from the River Seine. I don't know how you pronounce that. Seine, the River Seine, I think. Um, must have smelt bloody awful then. Yeah, yeah, just what I was thinking, Paul. Seepage, nice. Yeah, look, you know, like if, you know, anything was going to keep you know, the authorities away, it was the pong. And here we come up to that scene, Dark Realmers, where in Andrew Lloyd Webber's version, you know, they punt across the the Pui River, you know, which of course wasn't Pui in the musical. But visually, I mean, this movie must have been absolutely breathtaking in its day, absolutely breathtaking. And scenes like this, you know, which are it's supposed to be, you know, in, you know, underneath the Paris Opera House. Come, me flat's just this way, love. You have to forgive. It's not, you know, it doesn't look the best. This is a low class rent district here in Paris. A lingering shot as the door closes. Oh, it's not too bad for someone who lives underneath the Opera House. You've got to admit it's not too bad. See, even Lon Chaney's mask, I mean, you know, that's quite frightening. As compared to the, you know, the Andrew Lloyd half mask thing they had, which is still, you know, creepy, but not as creepy as this Dark Realmers. Well, in my opinion, anyway. Five cellars underground. That's a long way. You got the dialogue, or the, you know, was a little bit corny in that. But yeah, like I said, different era Dark Realmers too, and it was very much dialogue. They based it very much on you know, a lot of them that were taken from books. They took the dialogue from that, or versions of that. Okay. No, you're trapped, love. Love lot. Yeah, that is where I sleep. Yeah. Just that whole very gentle, you know, says everything. It's like, yeah. Whereas, you know, another performer probably would have gone, so well, I sleep in a coffin because, yeah, it's, I'm a bit funny like that. You are the Phantom. I, yeah, yeah. That's my nickname. Yeah, this is where it's sort of classic storytelling. You know, Beauty and the Beast, and yeah, can a woman love a monster? All those sort of stories, which are, you know, sort of really hot wired into us. Oh, here she goes again. Oh, betcha he doesn't have any smelling salts on him. They never do in these movies. Yeah, she will too, Paul. She will. Paul just said she'll have a headache in the morning. Yeah, she will, falling on those flagstones. At least he's got a nice bed for her. I mean, that's pretty, you know, pretty posh. Probably pinched that from upstairs. Fade out. It's probably news spread all around Paris. Oh, what? Oh, they Christine Darr disappears. Opera singer mysteriously vanishes following chandelier disaster. Yes, yeah, that's an interesting point, Paul. Yeah, Paul is just saying, I wonder how much symbolism we miss that people of the time would have taken for granted. Yes, that's very true. There were probably things in movies that because of the time period were just norms, just accepted that sort of we've forgotten about. So it would have been would be interesting, and that's why I think scholars and movie students and so forth pick over these movies to see what they can pick up that may have been lost on later generations. Tortured dreams. Well, Avery brings her in a cuppa. That's the least he could do after kidnapping her. Well, not kidnapping her, but well, sort of keeping her prisoner, eh? Yes, now that's a really good point, Paul. I even missed out on that. Paul's just saying that there's an association with the boat scene, the river Styx, passing into the underworld. And for those of you who don't know, Styx was the river that in Greek mythology, separated the living from the dead. And Charon used to ferry people over to that side. So, yeah, very much so. So that this where the phantom lives is sort of almost like death. It's where you know the life she knew ends. Okay, symbolically ends, and this is her new life, or what's going to be her new afterlife, you might say. So in Paul's actually picked up something I've just thought of too. So this is very much like a Greek mythology where Hades, the ruler of the underworld in Greek mythology, fell in love with Persephone, who was Demeter's daughter, who was the goddess of earth, and he kidnapped her and took her underground. And what happened was that Demeter was so distraught at losing her daughter that she stopped all the crops growing on Earth until Zeus said to her, "Look, no, it's not on. You can," and so she asked Hades to give her daughter, and he said she can come back as long as she hasn't eaten anything, and she'd eaten 3 pomegranate seeds, so that's why we have winter. Yeah, and it's a bit like it's as I was saying at the beginning of the movie too, Dark Realm. It's a little bit sad. Here's this poor man who's been disfigured, and all he wants is love. And he appreciates beauty and music and all the finer things that we love in life. And he has to keep away in the shadows because he'll never be accepted by society, and he'll never, you know. He'll never be able to sort of walk in the light. This is where the music would have been really good. The Phantom solo on the organ would have been a great soundtrack addition to this. I have no idea what that sounds like, Dark Realmers, unless that was something he wrote. Yeah, it's something he's written, which is sort of tragic, isn't it? But judging by her expression, she finds it a bit creepy. Yeah, it's a little bit like, one of those guys who, ladies who send you flowers and that, and then turns out to be a stalker, because there's cryptic messages. I love the way they build up Christine's by focusing on her, you know, her reactions and this is it, this is it, this is the most famous scene in this movie, Dark Realmers. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's an unfinished piece Eric has been working on for 20 years. Thank you, Paul. There you go, Dark Realmers. That is the makeup that Lon Chaney created himself, that even the producers weren't allowed to see. It's, can you imagine back then in the theatre, women screaming? They would have screamed, honestly. And the lighting of that lighting. Here we go. We've gotten a bit of a rough jump cut there to probably a bad piece of film. But isn't it amazing just that he came up with that? Yes, that's true, Paul. I've seen worse too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially on the weekend, you're very right there too. But what I love about his makeup is that he tried to keep him very human looking, um, with the hair and everything like that. But, he's just, yeah. There's, yeah. See, this once again ties in with the legend of Hades and Persephone, where Hades allowed her to go back, but she had to return to him. No, Paul's quite right there. This part of the story, wouldn't have been socially accepted, back then, that because it breaks all the taboos, kidnapping, forced imprisonment, all those sort of things. Yeah, it and that's probably where some of the horror comes from too, Dark Realmers. This story doesn't just rely on Lon Chaney being a horribly disfigured or figure. It's the horror of having your freedom taken away, of being captured by a stranger, and that still resonates today. We've seen stories about madmen capturing women and keeping them prisoner for years and years and years. So this is something that's in our psyche too. Yes, going to try and sort of explain things to him. But can you imagine, you know, the terrible position Christine's in? Like you know, he's quite capable of murder, Eric. I mean, and he'd have no hesitation in killing Raoul. But she must do something or she's going to be stuck there with him forever. Look at all those extras there, Dark Realmers. I mean, that was amazing. I have no idea, and I'm not going to pretend I know, whether they were all paid, whether the studio actually paid them or, you know, sort of they just rounded up people and said, look, do you want to be in the movies? And people jumped at it or not. But that is amazing crowd scene. Oh, and here's an interesting fact. No CGI. No, that's exactly right, Paul. Everything had to be done from scratch. It had to be done as we'd expect it to be done, you know, with if there was a crowd scene, you had to have crowd. And the funny thing is, for years, you know, people, you know, unspoken parts that just move in and out of scenes were known as extra until they demanded to be called atmosphere control personnel. But it's funny, nobody sort of took up that sort of, it didn't roll off the tongue. So when you talk about, you know, did you see that extra in movies? You don't say, did you actually see that atmosphere control personnel in the background? You know, in that movie, in the restaurant, in line, waiting to be served for a hamburger. That was my cousin. Nobody says that. Paul, we're talking about death here, and that isn't that amazing that this production they're doing features someone who is dressed up as death, you know, and it's a mask where everyone his face is covered, so we don't, you know, which is really ties in with the whole theme of the mask and the Phantom. The Red Death. Oh, he's got a good ear, old Raoul. Yeah. See, we can't. This isn't going to be like a classic movie, any movie, even today. Just when you think the hero and the heroine are safe, something happens. Now, this is, yes, look at that. You know, that's spectacular. That, you know, sums up, you know, how high they are above everything. And the angle that they've shot that too does make it. I mean, I'm sure people back then did think that they were probably on the top of the opera house. No, I don't think anyone's going to hear you except a few pigeons, maybe. Oh, there we go. You know. Oh, okay, Paul. Thank you so much for staying and being here for the movie with me, and thank you for your very interesting points. They've been very fascinating, and they've made me have a better think about this movie too. So you have a great night, Paul, and I'll chat to you soon, mate. Okay. Oh, thanks, mate. I'm glad you enjoy it. I've got a whole heap of more classics coming up too. will never sing again. Tomorrow I will take her place in Faust. After the performance, you must take me away, far, far away. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, Paul. That is great. I love chatting to people on my stream. Yeah, so hopefully there'll be some movies that you'll enjoy with me too. Okay, so have a great night, Paul. Oh, and while I'm here, Dark Realmers, I just tell you, Paul is the founder of Electric Eclectic, our wonderful novelettes by some of the world's best indie authors. Go to the Google Store, download our app, and you will find some great reading material there too. Okay, so they've hatched a plan, little knowing that he's there and he knows exactly what they're going to be doing. Oh, that's going to get him really jealous, Dark Realmers. Really, really jealous. That was a pretty long pash, on the neck, and it looked like, he was trying to grab her bum too, which I don't think was, sort of appropriate back then, especially not in the movies. Now that character is, I mean, I'm sure he's thrown in as a red herring because a lot of people would be saying, oh, at the beginning of the movie, oh, maybe he could be the Phantom. That was the opera Ghost. Like, so they've got a Phantom and a Ghost. Like, how greedy is this theatre to have two? Okay, escape the Master of the Black Art. Now, I think that's a little bit different from what I remember, or it could have been the sound movie I saw, because from my memory, he was a composer or a musician who'd written an opera, and somehow I think the management ripped him off, or they wouldn't use it, and he got acid thrown in his face, and he was all disfigured, and that's when he became the Phantom. So as you can see, Dark Realmers, that even back then the filmmakers did tinker around with the original source material, and I can see why they've done that, because it ties in with how the music would bewitch Christine, and it explained that too. So that makes it a lot more understandable, and it also sort of heightens it to make you, oh, he's into black arts, is he? No, well, he's not quite the tragic figure. Okay. Okay, now Christine, she's a bit worried here because this is the night, you know, she's either going to be rescued by Raoul or she's going to be captured by the Phantom, you know. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, Faust is an opera. I think it's an original story too about a man who sells his soul to the devil. I can't remember if he sells it for power or wealth or whatever. But it's a classic sort of human warning. What you reap, so shall ye. So what you sow, so shall ye reap. You know. But that's just a side issue, Dark Realmers. But it's interesting when you pick up on all these little things that are within movies. It's like finding the equivalent today of finding Easter eggs, I think. He knows everything. No, we can't. Really? Yeah, yep. Sorry, yep. I'm just wondering, Dark Realmers, if this was a... No, I don't think this was a... That horse carriage scene was outside because the brickwork looked like it wasn't genuine. But so that's amazing that they did that on stage too. Yeah, well, I'll see what I can do, love. Flash the pearly whites. Keep up your courage, Christine. My barouche is waiting outside, where we leave immediately after the performance. Okay, so I've learned something. That's a brand name of a carriage, a barouche. Might be like the horse version of the Model T, Dark Realmers. Wipe away those tears, my darling. Okay, this is it. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Okay, so what's he swapped over? Is it poison? Or maybe an explosion? You know, liquid thingy? Fear for his brother's safety brought the Comte de Chaugenay to the opera house that night. Comte de Chaugenay. Sorry about the French accent, Dark Realmers. Okay. Mm-hmm. The lights are going. Yeah. And she's gone. He certainly planned that well. You've got to give it to him, Dark Realmers. Still trying to find that secret entrance, Dark Realmers. It is I, Inspector Clouseau. I've been examining the clues. So it's all coming together in a nice little package, this story, Dark Realmers. Aha, found the secret. Ah, they were former torture chambers. Oh, nice. Very dark. Keep your hand up, it's a matter of life or death. Oh. Ah, that's why the stage person snuffed it or was murdered, Dark Realmers. Okay. Oh, very theatrical. Ere ye you perish. He's really pissed off now, Dark Realmers. Now you shall see the evil spirit that makes my evil face, that matches my evil face. Well, we're coming up to this stunning conclusion here, Dark Realmers. Oh, that was a bit of a long drop, eh? Oh, torture chamber. Oh, this is going to set up for some interesting things. I found it really interesting, Dark Realmers, the way they balanced Lon Chaney's character. You know, he was capable of great evil, but he was also a slightly pathetic character too. Mm. So that's obviously the Phantom's early warning system, Dark Realmers. Oh, he's walking in that yucky river. Oh, he's going to go under the yucky river. Now, my question here is, how can he actually see where he's going? It's really badly lit, and that water doesn't look terribly clear either, Dark Realmers. Perhaps that was a plot hole. Or maybe it's because he's lived there so long he just knows his way instantly around, you know? Hmm. Well, that's one down, Dark Realmers. Job well done. I think I've just got a feeling that scene was just done backwards, because notice he's instantly dry again now, Dark Realmers. I'm sure moviegoers back then didn't sort of really notice that terribly much. She's trying to keep him talking, obviously. Clever woman. Okay, this is probably where we have one of those pitchfork and torch scenes, a la Frankenstein. Come on, give it to me, love. I know what you've got. Sir, you thought you could trick me, did you? Voices? No, I didn't hear anything. No. How could there be anyone down here? Oh, okay then. Perhaps we have more callers. And he's begun some sort of fiendish trap. Intolerable heat. Oh. He's certainly got a few surprises for anyone who tries to go down and see him, hasn't he, Dark Realmers? No, don't kill him, please. Okay, this is where the crowd will come in and it'll be the diversion they need.